happened. So Ravish Kumar, he was doing this. Does these daily videos, right? And he was talking about how Pradhan Mantri ji has never given a press conference, right? And he was like, "Oh, shouldn't Pradhan Mantri sit in front of journalists? You know, like Siddharth Varadarajan, Karan Thapar, all these people." And then in the end, he's like, "Oh yeah, and Meghnad also." So I'm an afterthought for Ravish Kumar, which is great. I was like, why am I not an afterthought for Modi ji? Like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Let me do my thing.
For those who didn't understand, Pradhan Mantri is Prime Minister. So yeah, Narendra
Oh,
Modi in this
yes.
case.
Prime Minister, a
Yes.
supreme leader, as we call him.
You want to get me into trouble. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Tech Breakdown. I'm your host, Manasa. This is a show about the politics of social media and technology. And today I have a brilliant panel joining me, and we are filming an Indian election special. If you're tuning in from India, there is no way you've kind of missed all the pomp and the noise and the color and the speeches and the sound bites that come with election campaigns in the country. So you definitely know that elections are upon us. And if you're tuning in from outside India and have somehow missed all the sensational headlines in all the global outlets about the biggest democratic exercise ever and the world's biggest election ever, just to let you know that India's election started on 19th of April. We're recording this actually just a day before the first phase of elections are going to start, but by the time this comes out, it'll be a few days in. So hence the past tense. But I cannot thank all my guests enough for fitting this in, because it's a mad week for everyone. It's just before elections are starting, and everyone's running around with a lot of work. So I'm really, really thankful that you're here. Also, more than a busy week, it's kind of also, at least for me, one of a lot of emotional significance and kind of value, thinking about kind of where we are headed as a country. And there are a lot of worries and there are some hopes, I think. And so my first question to all of you today, a day before India goes to vote, how are we feeling? Meghnad, do you want to start?
Anxious would be the best way to describe it. Scared also a little bit. Why not? Like, it's good to be scared sometimes. We can't always be brave. The thing is that the reason why I feel this way is also because like there's been a pattern of escalation for shutting down critical voices and dissenting voices, and I feel like if the next government comes in with a even bigger majority, then then I mean they are just going to go nuts in a lot of ways, with the broadcasting bill, with the telecom bill, with so many other legislations, IT rules, which are meant to shut down now dissent on internet, because the legacy media has always already been silenced, or co-opted. Either way, all the people who wanted to dissent within the legacy media have exited and gone and joined, like, have started YouTube channels, are
Yeah.
speaking on Twitter, and doing all of these things. They have no space in legacy media anymore. But even that is causing trouble now to the government, and it is very obvious. So therefore, yes, and I being one of that tribe, even though I'm very low on the pecking order, or so I thought until recently. Yeah, it's still, there is this anxiety, there is a worry about where we are going, what is going to happen.
I mean, you should give yourself credit, you know. Yeah,
And
you're a big enough voice. Now you
so,
know.
so so yesterday this funny thing happened. So Ravish Kumar, he was doing this. Does these daily videos, right? And he was talking about how Pradhan Mantri ji has never given a press conference, right? And he was like, "Oh, shouldn't Pradhan Mantri sit in front of journalists? You know, like Siddharth Varadarajan, Karan Thapar, all these people." And then in the end, he's like, "Oh yeah, and Meghnad also." So I'm an afterthought for Ravish Kumar, which is great. I was like, why am I not an afterthought for Modi ji? Like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Let me do my thing.
For those who didn't understand, Pradhan Mantri is Prime Minister. So yeah, Narendra
Oh,
Modi in this
yes.
case.
Prime Minister, a
Yes.
supreme leader, as we call him.
You want to get me into trouble. But so that was Meghnad, everyone. Meghnad is a digital news journalist. He used to write for News Laundry, which is a brilliant Indian news outlet. He's now a YouTuber who does brilliant news analysis and is also a writer. Do you have a book coming out, don't
Yes.
you?
Yes, I have written my second book. So my first book is already out. It's
Yeah.
called Parliamental. It's a political satire. The second one is coming out this year sometime. Let's hope. It's been 4 years in the works. So yeah.
Congratulations. And if you want to look at his YouTube channel, it's Meghnad. And
Yes.
hopefully I'll put it somewhere in the video that you can see what it is. But Ritu, do you want to say how you're feeling?
Yeah, sort of in some ways, bit surreal that I never thought that we will be at a moment in Indian democracy where, we will be so concerned about it. And I'm just speaking for my own self when I say that. I'm very aware of that. But yes, very surreal, very concerned, and also very concerned on where the Indian state is going to lead after this election in the wider geopolitical. I mean, we know where it is going to lead, but is it going to, fast track the entire Hindutva agenda and what's coming ahead for the Indian minorities, and also for the Indian majorities for that matter. So very jumpy and very surreal feeling that, oh, we are entering into this dystopian sort of place.
I'm sensing not a lot of hope.
No, not a lot
I
of
must
hope,
say,
but
go on. Sorry, complete your thought then.
so kind of like not a lot of hope in that sense, but also a bit more kind of thinking about that, okay, now we know we are perhaps entering a dystopia. So how do we brace ourselves? So what do we have to do to maybe emerge on the other side of it? So
well, you've said there's another
hopeful
side.
in that sense,
That's
but
hopeful. There is another side then.
Yes, there is another side, hopefully. So yeah.
Well, that's Dr. Ritumbra Manuvie. She's a professor of law at the University of Groningen, and she also co-founded the London Story, which is a brilliant outfit, a non-profit that researches hate and disinformation online. And they do, well, a lot of it is really bleak stuff, but they do great work. Meghnad, you had a point.
No, I was just saying, yes, there is hope. I mean, like, you asked, how am I feeling at this point
We
of
should, we
time?
should
Sure.
come to this in the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. Oh, in the end, no, no, no. I'm going to start off with a hopeful note. So, I mean,
We need it.
75 years of independence, and we have seen things like this happening before. Even worse, like with a majority government,
True.
more majority than this one. Even 400 par, which they are saying, which is unlikely, I would say. But at the same time, we have seen a 400 par government before with one party. Not an
Yes.
alliance, one party, and then they
Yes.
passed anti-defection laws. They did their own things also during
Yeah.
that time. So yeah, there is hope that all totalitarian regimes end at some point.
Yeah. It's just when is the question.
Yeah.
Saurav, how are you feeling?
So all my feelings have been described by my other two co-panelists. So that's less work for me. I think the only thing I'll add is I'm excited about the results because
Mm.
see from both sides you listen to people saying that we are going to win, we are going to win, but you never know who's going to win because back when we had Atal Bihari Vajpayee as our prime minister, they went to an early election thinking that they're going to win, but then they lost very badly, right? So that hope, again, coming back to hope, I think, perhaps if not, those huge numbers that they're aiming for in parliament, at least there will be some accountability that they'll have to face in these elections, I hope. So I'm very excited about the results and to see what's going to come next, and then we'll plan accordingly how we are going to act and what we can do to sort of keep
How
them
we are
in.
going to act is a very
Yeah.
crucial point. We'll come to that. Saurav is an independent investigative journalist who covers legal affairs and public policy. He writes a lot for the outlet Article 14 and also very famously does these incredible Twitter threads on the Indian judiciary and the Supreme Court in particular. And now Indian politics. So welcome everyone. And at some point we'll also hear from Archis Chowdhury, who couldn't join because he was traveling, but we kind of pre-recorded his segment, but I'll add that in sometime later. Okay, let's dive into the crux of the matter. I'll start with you, Meghnad.
Yep.
I was kind of going to ask you how it is like producing journalism that's critical, and that doesn't toe the government's line. And that was what I had scripted a couple of days ago. And then I saw yesterday that your YouTube videos are being targeted, and that it looks like people approaching certain topics that the government's not liking, and their videos are being demonetized on YouTube. Firstly, I'm really sad, and I'm sorry that it's come to it, but also in a way it's indicative of the times we are living in, right? Do you want to kind of
Yeah.
explain what's going on?
So the long story short, essentially in the last week, so I'm a live streamer now. Like the thought behind live streaming is very simple. Saurav was in one of my live streams also. Is that, there is constant audience interaction. It's a 3 hour live stream and you can listen to it like a podcast later. That being the crucial point, right? So whenever I end my live stream, there will be like 2,000, 3,000 views. But later, 2 days after that, 3 days after that, it would go up to like 15K, 20K, depending on the topic and the interest, right? So most of my revenue from those live streams actually came from the later part of it, because YouTube would show ads there, and I would get some money from there. Unfortunately, for the last week or so, a few of my live streams, I would say most of my live streams, even yesterday's live stream actually, got demonetized. So the later part of income just completely shut down. Channel revenues have gone down suddenly, and I'm very confused about why that is happening, because I send it for review on YouTube. They don't give you any reason, right? They just say you violated some policy, advertiser guidelines, etc. I can still earn from super chats and memberships and all, but the ad revenue is completely cut off. So that has been happening, and I was just casually responding to my friend Sohit, who also complained about this, and he said that should I name the machine? Otherwise, you will also get demonetized. So like that is a very conscious choice I have to make now.
Well, do name it, because we don't actually make money out of any of the videos.
Okay, amazing.
Name
That's the
it.
best way to be. Yes. So the
Freedom.
EVM. So whenever ironic, like, because I've been calling it the washing machine in my streams recently to test it out, and it did work. But anyway, so EVM is when, so all the top videos on EVMs are selectively, like it's a pattern. It's an observed pattern, if I may say so. Maybe it's something else which I don't know about, which YouTube found is violating guidelines. But what I'm saying now is that I'm playing whack-a-mole every morning. Like I'm going through my old content and seeing which is the new video that has been demonetized. And in the last 2, 3 days, some very old videos randomly got demonetized. Like one was on Modi review, where I was reviewing his Make in India scheme. That got demonetized. Yesterday, Dhruv Rathi's reaction video, which was on, like, I was doing a reaction video to his dictatorship video, that got demonetized. I've sent it for review. Some get cleared, some don't. But I lose like a good chunk of revenue there. Right. So that is what has been happening to me essentially. The story escalated more than it needed to. Congress did a press conference and named me and stuff. And I'm like, nahi, I don't want it. I
Congress is
don't.
the opposition party, people.
Yeah.
India's opposition party right now at the national level. And so, I mean, I was watching your stream yesterday, and they demonetized that as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, in 15 minutes of ending it. Yeah.
But you were saying, and I quote you, "Why is the dictator even bothering with me?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's very strange when I think about it, right? Which is, so I was expecting some sort of pushback from the establishment. I mean, like, if you'd be stupid to not anticipate this at this point of time. Either, like, I keep telling this story. So I have a person who collects my garbage every morning, right? And he shows up very randomly sometime during the morning and on random days, right? So sometimes he comes at like 6 in the morning and he very aggressively knocks on the door, right? And whenever he does that, I am very scared because I'm thinking that either the IT or the ED has come and they'll take my equipment away, right? And this is a capital investment that I've done in order to start a channel, which will, I hope that it will repay itself, and then I will earn some money out of the YouTube channel as a creator, right? I mean, it's like a business only, right? So if they take my equipment away, I'm done, right? I have no savings. I'm done. um Jail will to chhod do, like, jail is next step. But now, and I was thinking that it would happen after elections, right? And I think Saurav and me spoke about this also, that, theek hai, like, let's do it till the elections, till the results come, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll pivot. Maybe I'll become a gaming content creator. Like, suddenly, all my videos will be private, and I'll be a gaming content. I'll play Minecraft or something. So I was thinking that way, and suddenly now this has happened earlier, a month earlier, and I'm a little caught off guard, honestly. It's like, why is the dictator bothering with me? Because I have like a 40,000 subscriber channel. And
I think
how does it matter?
this is his award after the National Creators Award that he gave to all his
Accurate,
people,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people listening in National Creators Award is this award that the government, led by Mr. Narendra Modi, sort of created to award content creators and influencers. And a lot of different people got awards. So this kind of shows the government's liking to move to an influencer model where they kind of go on these channels of these influencers and kind of speak to them, instead of, well, speaking to critical journalists. Well, mainstream media anyway doesn't ask much questions, but that seems to be kind of the pattern, isn't it? To kind of, but that's the kind of difference, isn't it? There is this set of influencers, more politician friendly influencers maybe, that are doing
Yep.
really well right now in India, and monetizing on a lot of content, by getting all these top ministers to come on their YouTube channels. And then there is this totally different set of influencers, content creators like yourself, who are kind of critical, who have a journalism background, used to work for either mainstream news or other digital outlets, and have now come to these spaces looking to kind of voice your dissent and your critical opinions. And now you are being totally shut down as well, right?
Yeah. So, if you want to put it in a very simple way, so there's a two-pronged strategy, right? One is, of course, they're rewarding the creators who are, doing pro-establishment content or just like not problematic content, right? So it's not like the government can outright tell the creator community that, oh, look, these are the standards that we are setting. If anything goes around, like, beyond that, then you'll be shut down, right? They're trying to do that with the broadcasting bill, but they haven't set it yet. So what is the next best thing you can do? You reward the creators that are following those standards right now, so that other creators get a signal that you have to do what they are doing. Otherwise, you face the consequences, and the consequences being what you're seeing.
Saurav, do you want to talk about these bills? So it's not just that YouTube is, or these platforms are randomly removing content, although it seems arbitrary. There are these laws that have come into place, right, in the last few years, including the IT Rules Act. Well, the IT Rules Act was there, I guess new amendments came in a few years ago. And these are the ones that are being particularly used on various platforms to kind of censor or shut down critical voices. Do you want to talk about them?
Right. So, the Information Technology Act was brought in 2000, and there's one particular section in the bill, Section 69A, which the government has used. I think every successive government has used over time to sort of, shut down voices that are critical of it. But under this government, right, and also the proliferation of internet in India is also a factor which has, uh, seen a boom under the present dispensation after 2014. So this government has used this particular provision to shut down any critical voices. Doesn't matter if the blocking order that they pass is in compliance with whatever law that is in place, right? So this section really gives the government the power to block content on the internet, right? And the rules that they have framed under this act, because the IT rules of 2009, those rules are very, very, they're broad. They don't have any accountability measures. And it asks the government to maintain strict confidentiality about all its actions. So these three things make these IT rules really problematic, and the government has been able to use it to censor thousands of people, thousands of posts. Initially, you saw maybe particular tweets getting blocked on the internet, maybe accounts getting blocked. Now you are seeing the entire account getting blocked, videos being taken down, number of tweets being taken down, and there's simply no recourse for anybody. So the act came into force in 2000. The rules were made in 2009, and they have seen such a I think great amount of misuse after 2014 under the present dispensation. And the problem here is that the people have no recourse. They can't go to the courts. There is no appellate mechanism in the present rules. And the government has been able to use that to escape any accountability, be it under the Right to Information Act, which is equivalent to what the Freedom of Information Act in the UK or the US. Um, you know, any information that you ask under that law, it's denied because apparently it concerns national security, national interests. So on such vague grounds, information is denied. You do not receive a copy of the order that the government passes to block any of these tweets and content. So you, first of all, in many instances, people do not even know that their content has been blocked. So how are you going to take a recourse, right? And if you don't have an order from the government stating for these reasons your content is blocked, how are you gonna have an effective,
Legal
how can you
defense.
effectively appeal? Yeah, anywhere, if there is a mechanism, right? And the courts are hesitant to get into this issue because then, it may perhaps open the floodgates of litigation, because every other person might come to the court and say, my two-line tweet, three-line tweet, one video has been taken down, and do something about it. And the courts are really packed with the number of, clogged with the number of cases that we have in India. So the courts are hesitant. There is no mechanism, and the government has been able to, go scot-free because of it.
I
And
mean,
now,
Just wanted
yeah,
to add 2 points to what Saurav said, if I
yeah.
may.
yeah,
So before 69A, there was an act called 66A, which was struck down by the Supreme Court, right? So in the Shreya Singhal case in 2016. So it was essentially the same thing which 69A is currently. But essentially, the Supreme Court said that, you can't like just jail people for putting up a Facebook status. That was essentially what happened, right?
defamation. Yeah,
Yeah, the funny thing is, until 2023, you will still find reports of the bureaucracy using 66A to jail people. Even after it has been struck down and declared unconstitutional, the thing is, the implementation is funnier than the law sometimes, right? So, one of the things that Saurabh pointed out about recourse, for example, right? So, my videos get demonetized. I have no clue why. Neither is YouTube giving me a reason, nor is the government going to give me a reason. Even if I file the RTI, they'll just reject it. So now, where do I go? Who do I complain to? Right?
Yeah.
When do I, like, if I go to court, the first thing the judge would ask me is, what is the evidence that the government did this or YouTube did this? It's like, you are just showing me screenshots of demonetized yellow icons. What am I supposed to do with this? That's the thing, right? Like, because citizens have no information, and also they don't have any right to ask for information. Even if they do, there are exceptions made which benefits the government. We can't defend ourselves anymore.
I mean, but this is a trend, right? Because I mean, this is not just now individual tweets now. I mean, the government directed YouTube to take down, I think it was called National Dastak, which is a news channel, and it had, what, 9,400,000 subscribers. It forced Facebook to restrict the page of Article 19, which is an Indian news site. It took down Bolta Hindustan's YouTube.
Yes.
As well. And all of this has just happened in the last month. I'm not taking a long period of time. This is the last 1 month. And none of these outlets were given a reason, like you said. So what it looks like is that you will make whatever you make, you're not going to be told why your content was removed. you have no legal recourse because first you have no proof that your content was taken down. And then now you can't, well, you don't even have a mechanism. Or if you do, it's a very lengthy court process. And why?
you know,
That, yeah.
one
And I
small thing I wanted to add, and sorry, just one thing. You know, other thing is, even if I don't want to take them to court, right? Even if I don't want to complain, let's say YouTube has demonetized my video, they should tell me why, because otherwise, how will I improve my conduct as a
Correct.
creator? How will I follow your guidelines if I don't know what I'm violating,
But
right?
maybe that's the reason to keep the level of
Can I
ambiguity so
add
much.
something
Yeah.
to what Meghnad just said? So
Yeah.
I think the problem is also there that we currently do not really have a specific jurisprudence through which we can, move forward. And what you said just now, that, tell me how can I improve my conduct? And I think that very much also applies when it comes to cases and law, and lawmaking in that process. That, where do we go? Where do we seek recourse? Can I go to the Supreme Court and maybe you can give me some jurisprudence over here, some hints of it, perhaps. And I think there the question of also the politicking sort of comes in, right? Saurav, you've written about it and you've spoken about it, but so I think that's very much there. And then also we have to also realize that even the right of information, I have it against the state, not necessarily against the non-state actor, right? So we don't really have it anyways against these platforms, but we do have it towards the government. But how do we bell the cat in that sense?
And might I just add here?
Yeah.
Of course, the government, if it passes an order under Section 69A, uses the IT rules, there's still a possibility that Twitter contacts you on your email and says that your content is blocked because we received a legal request or legal demand from the government of India. But then when things go extra legal, like maybe say Meghnad's video gets demonetized, and if it's a state actor acting in an illegal way, maybe has a back channel to YouTube and says, ask them to remove critical content or, do stuff like this, there's no recourse at all, right? So there is a legal method of doing things, which the government is anyway using. And there's also extra legal way of doing things, which you perhaps cannot do anything about. And that is where I feel the accountability from these platforms come in.
I mean, now that leads us very neatly into platforms. And there is one issue, obviously, that we've seen, particularly now in India, of voices being silenced, of criticism being silenced, and a lot of censorship in the digital space. But then there is this also other kind of unruly behavior from actors, where there's a lot of hate, a lot of disinformation, and other kinds of things that go basically unregulated. And so, Ritu, your research, well, it was published today, and it shows that a lot of far-right pages, in this case, pro-BJP pages, Bharatiya Janata Party, which is at the center, which, well, Modi is leading right now, and which shows that essentially there are these shadow pages on Meta that have been abusing political advertising on the platform and spreading hate and disinformation. We had one bit of this investigation of one shadow network from this outlet called Boom Live, but you've basically shown the whole scale of it, right? Do you want to talk about the research and what you all found?
Yeah, so we were basically looking at the ad library itself, and I think many of my co-panelists are doing that as well. Especially like Archis is definitely doing that, and we communicate quite often about it. So the concern that we had was that in any kind of democracy, you need to have a way to follow the money, right? Especially when it comes to political influence. And I kind of also realized that I'm sitting here in Europe, where we have this massive transparency dialogue also going on. But this transparency dialogue hasn't really been missing from India either. Indian civil societies have equally worked very hard to get certain degree of accountability, transparency, right to information when it comes to electoral processes, right? And what this shadow network is doing is essentially bypassing that whole domain, and what the platforms are doing are facilitating our walk backwards in some ways. So like pushing us 20 years back into the time where these dialogues were just non-existent. So what we tried to do was that we looked at the disclaimers of Meta on ads, and these disclaimers are usually the name of the pages, which can be very anonymous names in this case. And I think Boom Live also did an analysis of Ulta Chashma, so that's just inverted glasses.
This is a very elaborate page, though, but we'll come to that. Go ahead.
It is. Yeah, and another page, Meme Express, Political X-ray. I mean, what kind of names and legal entities are these, right? But if they are buying ads, the money is coming from somewhere, unless Meta is taking cash or crypto, right? So money is coming from a bank account, and that bank account should be the disclaimer. And this is a challenge we also had in Europe under the DSA, the Digital Safeties Act, where the social big platforms are basically asked to put these disclaimers. But if the disclaimer is some random anonymous name and leading to an anonymous website, which is privacy, filtered, or doesn't have a legal entity behind it, or no way for a normal human voter or normal person in everyday life of a country can figure out who is this person paying this advertisement and talking about Mr. Modi so nicely, who loves Mr. Modi or hates Mr. Kejriwal or other way around. How is this voter going to form an actual informed opinion based on these, barrage of advertisements which are there?
For people
and then
listening.
we tried one more point.
Sorry,
I wanted to add. So we also tried calling the numbers which were present, and interestingly, these numbers were switched off continuously for a whole month. We tried calling them, but nobody picked up. So how are they doing these verifications? And that's the simple thing that we can ask as citizens. Like, can you please tell us who's paying for Mr. Modi's campaign?
Yeah. Like if I mean, most people are not a nerd who spend their time on ad library like us, do they? But like, if you want to visualize this is how it looks. So so there are all these ads that are linked to Facebook pages, and if you go to these pages, they take you to these very weird websites. Like Ritu said, these are what you will probably call placeholder websites. So all they have is the name, a logo. They'll have some sort of a phone number, which, as Ritu pointed out, leads nowhere. And they will all claim to be news websites with no news on them. So all they use this website for is to run these political ads on Facebook and, well, Meta's other platforms like Instagram. And basically, you have no way of finding out who paid for these ads, which is essentially the issue here. And in this case, it's a bit difficult. But if I remember correctly, in 2019, when Reporters Collective did a similar investigation into the ads that were running then in various state elections, they again found a lot of different surrogate and ghost pages, and they kind of linked that to the BJP, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and over here also, like, we made a distinction between surrogate and shadow in the terms that with the shadow, we didn't really had any way of finding a legal entity just by the disclaimer. With the surrogate, we had a GST number provided. So essentially, that means that Meta does have a GST number. So why are you not providing it for everyone else? So because with the GSTIN, you can track back who these entities are and you can look into who they are. And fair enough, if you're such a fan of Mr. Modi, you want to spend 1 million USD on advertising for him, go for it, right?
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? You can't now distinguish if this is someone independent, is how they kind of put it, or whether it's actually come from coffers of political parties, right? Because
exactly.
If you see, very, very interestingly, if you see the BJP's official spend on Meta is actually lower than the spend of these far-right pages, especially just Ulta Chashma, which should be a problem, because then there is a spending limit, isn't there? And so it's
there isn't. Technically
on the
there
candidates.
isn't.
Okay.
It's only on the candidates, not on the party, essentially. But but still, I think as voters, people need to know where the money is coming from and who's paying, and it's not just
And
you
it's so beautiful because in elections, and we know this, a lot of cash is spent, so that is completely anonymous. Even
Yeah.
after the electoral bonds thing, even with the electoral bonds thing, there is still a lot of cash being spent. Let's not kid ourselves. So like that cash is being spent by whoever, right? So then the spending limit just goes out of the like whatever for the candidate and the party. Party to
Yeah.
has infinite amount of money spending possible. The interesting thing here is that platforms like Meta, etc., they you can pay only Meta in check or bank transfer, right? I hope you can't give like bags of cash to Meta. I hope. Like,
yeah,
Don't know.
we haven't come
same
there
here.
yet. We haven't come there yet.
It's the next investigation.
Yeah, so
I
you
think
have
it's
this
the next
beautiful
action.
yeah, you have this beautiful system built out which is okay for Europeans and everyone to track, and where you are actually able to see who is giving money for what advertisement, especially political content, which should be applicable in India also. But
Yeah.
unfortunately the standards are somehow different. I don't know why.
Mm.
That's also a big question, right? Like are these platforms with actually we are now as we call it, data serfs of these platforms, where
Yeah.
a lot of our population is on these platforms. Literally, your numbers are coming from India now. Like most number of users are from India, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you look at it. Even on Twitter, like we have a lot of users now, and I think it's growing. I think we're number two or number one. I don't know. But the thing is, we are a lot of people. We are giving
Mhm.
you a lot of attention. That's what you want, right, Meta? So then we are giving you that. And then now give us something back, no? Like at least transparency, maybe?
They are giving it back, just not to the people, just other
Yeah,
kinds of people.
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, but it's interesting, Meghnad, that you said that that in Europe they have these rules and all. It's funny because in Europe, yes, we got the DSA and it demands a disclaimer, but nobody even in the European policy circle knows what this disclaimer should look like. And we are actually essentially at the same problem
Oh, okay,
that
fair
is
enough.
this disclaimer good enough? So if they're like testing around all the countries, and okay, India says this disclaimer is good enough, it should be good enough for you as well. Why are you
Yeah.
guys so picky about it? So that's the sort of a problem we are in that sense.
but outside of this as well, what Meghnad actually said, there is a certain hypocrisy when it comes to the
Yeah.
way these platforms function in Western countries when it comes to other countries, right? Ritu, like you were yesterday, you were there at Meta's headquarters, and your
Yes.
organization and several other organizations and protesters linked to them were outside demanding that Meta do better for election integrity in India. And I was talking to one of the protesters yesterday, and one of the things they were saying is precisely what we want is for Meta to act a certain way that's uniform, because they had all these election integrity measures for the US elections, but
Mm,
nothing for India.
exactly.
Which kind of brings out that point about what Meghnad was saying when it comes to how they treat people in India versus how it is elsewhere, because maybe they'll be pulled up for their behavior more in the US. I don't know, but that essentially has stuck around, hasn't it, throughout
Yeah.
all issues.
Yeah, indeed. And I think this is also like the bigger challenge that we are tackling as global South society, civil society, representing in the even different coalitions which are talking to Meta about these issues, that, hey, you really need to be realistic over here. Why do you have only content moderators in English language, not in other language? And there has been so many persistent efforts. And what they tell us now is that in India, they have 16 language moderation capacity. We don't believe it for a bit, because when we go checking and just peer reviewing, are you content moderating, we don't see much happening on that end. So it's a big challenge. And yes, at the end of the day, these are Western companies, right? So they are taking data from the rest of the world and monetizing and profiting the Western countries. So there is absolutely this power and extractive relationship which is there. And unfortunately, we are again at the losing side of it in some
So
ways.
there's
So, yeah.
one example of this which is actually very recent as well, right? So Twitter is often called out for this hypocrisy also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They shut down the office in India completely. I mean, Elon Musk was downsizing, so there is no office anymore. We don't know where to
Oh,
go
wow.
to
Where
complain.
will he come when he meets Modi right now?
That's a very good question. That's actually a very good question.
He's
I
yeah. So for people, Elon
Yeah.
Musk is meeting Narendra Modi just before Indian elections. But go on.
During Indian elections,
Oh, during. Sorry,
it's going to be
During,
insane.
yes.
Like, so last elections, our Pradhan Sevak, Supreme Leader Shri Sir Adharaniya Narendra Modi ji, he had basically hired this actor, very famous actor called Akshay Kumar. Hired being a very loosely used term. So and then he did like the most innocuous interview with him, which is like, oh, how do you eat your mangoes? Those sort of questions, right? So this time, Bill Gates came over to do that job, and now Elon Musk is also going to do that job. So it has escalated. Now we have like international, actors who are coming and doing the same things. I'm
asking.
pretty sure this is
We've
going to
just
happen.
covered mangoes. There are apples. There are
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
pears,
so many other
grapes.
things to ask about.
Mm-hmm.
But what interestingly, what Twitter does, and I do have to appreciate one thing about Twitter, right? So of course they have no office. We don't know where to complain, but they have been getting a lot of these takedown notices from the government also, right? So yesterday, they put out like this yesterday or day before, 2 days ago, that government handled. They put out this thing. We are making all the notices public, which have been sent by the government. They did it also during the farmers' protest. They did it now. At least they are being nice enough to let the citizens know that, listen, your account, we didn't take it down, the government asked us to do it, we have no option, right? Even if that little modicum of transparency is being followed by platforms, that's good enough, right? You're basically fighting half the fight for us, right?
Mm.
But the sad part is, why does the platform have to do this? Why isn't the election commission who sent the notice make it
Yeah.
public at the same time?
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Why does it have to be a secret? ठीक है, like you're saying that, oh, the model code of conduct has been violated, some policy has
Yeah.
been violated, and we are shutting down this account. Sure, you have decided, you have done. Why aren't you telling people though that we have
Mhm.
taken this action? Like, what is your problem? Like, I don't understand. And the problem being again what Saurav came to, which is then we will take them to court. We will basically fight. We will say that this is unfair.
But if for every action, if the recourse is someone going to court, then actually no one's actually going to
And
Oh,
pursue
that's
it.
please,
why I
Saurav,
say
you must talk about over litigation now. This is a must.
This is the time.
and the courts know this because I see here, filing a petition is not as expensive as filing a petition in the UK or the US, right? And here, if you are in a metro city, you'll probably find someone who will probably take you to court pro bono. So it's not going to be a huge hassle for people like us. Of course, access to justice in India is quite poor, really. So a person in remote village whose tweet is censored or Facebook post is censored may not be able to approach the court, but people like us can, and people like us maybe are in substantial number, and the courts know this, and therefore that's why uh, the jurisprudence is lacking.
Hmm.
The courts have
Mm.
not come up with it at all because they know this problem is gonna start. So
Yeah.
I think the solution lies in the law itself being framed in such a manner that the committee which sits to examine requests for censorship is
Mm.
independent enough to actually apply their mind and not act as a rubber stamp of the government and
Mm.
work according to political exigencies, right? So I think the answer lies there, and there needs to be some statutory appeals mechanism also within the law. So if the committee sort of passes the order, the
Mm.
review committee should be more independent, consisting of maybe of former judges, probably people from the civil society. A system like that needs to be created if you are not to over litigate, or
Mm.
don't
Yeah.
want people to actually
Just
approach.
just one statistic that I read recently. I think I don't know who had put it out. Maybe Live Law. I don't know. Saurav, you'll know. That about 73% of all cases going on in the Supreme Court right now have the government as a party. The
Yeah,
government is one way or the other, either the litigant or the
because
defender.
Article 14.
Article
Yeah.
14 did this, yeah.
Mm.
And like, think about it. 73%, the government is fighting in the court, right? Which means the rest of the people who are supposed to actually get justice, they either get pushed away, their justice is delayed insanely. So the number of under trials in India is some 80%, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
ridiculous. The average under trial years is somewhere around 8 to 9 years. So you have to wait for
No,
eight
much
to
more,
nine
much
years.
more,
Oh, much more.
much more. Yeah,
Okay.
much more.
I read 12 years at one point and then 8 years at one point. I'm like, I'll take the conservative estimate. It's like
Well,
8
it's a long
years.
time anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I've litigated in India initially, and like I have seen clients who have been lingering for the cases for even 20 years and onwards
Yeah.
for simple family law disputes. So it's yeah, the pendency of the cases is just too huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People just don't want to end at one level. They need to go to the final, the Supreme
Hmm.
Court. And Supreme Court has three mechanisms. You go the first, you get a bad order, you can go for review. You get a bad order, you go
Yeah.
for curative petition, right? So you only after you end that, the battle ends. So that tendency is there. And government has all the resources to really keep fighting you on. Say if my tweet is censored, I go to the High Court passes a good order, the government will litigate in the Supreme Court, and then you start all over again, and it's going to take years and years together,
Hmm.
maybe a decade for a final decision to come in.
And
mm,
also, like, someone like me or someone like Saurav will never be able to afford a lawyer to do this. Like, I mean, they might do the first level bono, but you can't
Yeah,
expect a lawyer to just give up everything and do it for like years and years for you, right? At some point, they'll be like, boss, even I have to run my house. Please give
mm,
some money or whatever.
yeah,
But how long?
yeah,
So, one of the intentions of these slap suits, right, is basically to drain people of resources.
yeah.
Just one small example I'll give you. I was working with News Laundry, right, which is an independent media organization. They run on subscriber money. They got some, I believe, 52 income tax notices in the last 4 5 years, and two raids. One of them I was present during the raid. Okay, like, they came in, they took our phones, they made us sit for like 6 hours, did like questioning and all sorts of nonsense. But the thing is that they want to waste your time so that you can't do your actual work of journalism. So they will entangle you in this process, right? Second, our accounts department with News Laundry is constantly like, one person has been hired to deal with this now. Like, because it's insane. They'll keep asking you for something else or the other every day. Even though
Mm,
you don't have to go, you have to fish out like a samosa bill one day. You have to fish out like something else the other day, and then like founder का भी property दे दो, इनका भी property, कुछ भी करते हैं, right? The third thing is, the thing is, these are organizations that already don't have money. They're
mm,
already, working for subscription money, right? Like, they're asking for money from the public because anti-establishment journalism is not being supported by advertisers, as is
mm,
evidenced by me now. Uh,
mhm.
Thank you, government, YouTube, I guess. No, whoever. But
You don't know who to.
whoever. I don't know who.
This is
But
precisely the point. You don't know who to go now. Who to go
yeah,
to now.
and the thing is, like, if if uh, if you don't have that income source, right?
Yeah.
You can't pay your reporters. You can't do journalism. You can't do investigative journalism. Now,
Mhm,
investigative journalism is what people like Ritu are doing. Poor things, like, academics are being forced to, like, essentially, I mean, Ritu, no offense, but like, honestly, like, the kind of studies you would do, you would have more time to investigate. Like, you waited for a month calling that number, right? Like, to see if you get a response, right? A journalist can't afford to do that anymore because they have to also do their daily stories. The
Yeah.
platform will be like, we
yeah.
can't afford to do a 1 month investigation into this, where so much resources will go in. We can't afford it. So it's really tragic because this whole circular thing is just related to the courts, it's related to the
Mm,
government, it's related to censorship. It goes to all sorts of wonderful
mm.
places.
basically we've talked about all the institutions there can be and how from every kind of angle the information space is being highly either controlled or throttled.
Yep.
And to add to that, we this year also have a new entrant to already plethora of problems, AI, and
Yes.
particularly deepfakes.
Yes.
And I spoke
Fun
to
stuff.
Archis particularly about deepfakes. I mean, there are some who do believe that the more sinister uses of AI that have not been seen this sort of election cycle, and that the worries are a bit exaggerated. Archers particularly seem to think otherwise. Yeah, so basically, I mean, we've seen various political campaigns sort of use AI, and this is kind of the first national election sort of where we've seen what the use of AI looks like, but there have been a few state elections last year and the year before where we did see candidates kind of use AI to deepfake, and this is not just true of the ruling party, but also several parties at the state, but also parties at the national level. What kind of uses have they put deepfake AI into, particularly in campaigns in the run-up to these elections?
So as you said, like we haven't really seen much malicious use of AI. There has been a lot of AI being used, generative AI, for example, taking a very old Hindi song, patriotic song, by a singer, and then changing the voice to that of Narendra Modi's. We had recently seen that. We had done a story on that as well. We had also seen political parties using AI to make satirical posts on their opponents. Both BJP and Congress had done that. But very like the very hardcore malicious uses where you kind of deep fake someone to create sexual content, or you maybe try to say make an opposition leader say something like, don't vote for our party, vote for the others, or like make them say that they're boycotting the elections. Things like that we haven't seen in India yet. So I actually had a meeting with some fact checkers yesterday, and the general sentiment was that, okay, like this is not really happening, such sophisticated deepfakes, India maybe doesn't need it. And maybe parties think that, already the campaigns that they're running is good enough. I don't totally agree though, because I kind of expect the worst. I want to be prepared for the worst. And so I have been also following the elections in neighboring countries. And so what I've seen is like there's a lot of attention on deepfakes right now. And so they don't have a very long shelf life on social media platforms. So if they show up, they're going to be taken down, which is why it's most effective to put them out on the day of polling or just before. And you have to also keep in mind that India is going to be voting for over a month. And, starting from end of April all the way till June. So it's 1.5 months of polling. So the campaigns are going to evolve. And this also goes for the disinformation campaigns. So I do expect these very sophisticated deepfakes to show up. But I think it's too early for that. I mean, 19th, we're going to start. So starting from 17th onwards, we are going to be very closely monitoring this space and I have a good feeling that, we're gonna see this, we're kind of prepared for this. So we are in touch with all the social media platforms to report immediately the moment we see it. But the problem is something like this, once it shows up, the damage is already done. It's going to be downloaded and shared on WhatsApp, Telegram, and all these other very encrypted platforms, which is then going to be very difficult to trace and monitor. But yeah, I mean, trying to do the best we can.
So what you're saying is we haven't so far seen the malicious use of deepfake AI particularly, but there are indications of the use of this technology so far anyway in the political campaigns. And since they're not going to be one of the kind of disinformation that's going to be flooded in large numbers, but they're going to target them particularly in specific days, more catching the virality aspect than the quantity aspect. So you're expecting them to kind of come to words later. And so just because we've not seen it so far doesn't mean it wouldn't.
As you said earlier as well, ahead of the 5 state elections that happened at the end of last year, there were actually generative AI was used quite liberally by, for example, parties in the south in Telangana, where people were using generative AI to show their leaders going around talking to people, meet and greet, these kind of not that malicious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then in Madhya Pradesh, we did see voice cloning algorithms being used to basically the BJP and Congress leaders Kamal Nath and Shivraj Singh Chauhan, like deepfakes of both of them had gone viral. Congress had also posted a deepfake of KTR in Telangana, and that was deleted. That was also reported quite widely. We didn't spot this because I think it was deleted before we could spot this, and it's kind of disappeared from the internet. But we had read a lot of reports on this, and somebody like an expert from Microsoft had also kind of commented on it, saying that it was quite a sophisticated deepfakes where people couldn't actually tell, even experts couldn't tell very easily that it was a deepfake. So so and another thing I'd add is that we had spoken to a few people who make deepfakes. So like for example, this guy called Devendra, he's also known as the Indian deepfaker. So he had spoken to us saying that he had gotten a lot of requests from not directly from parties, but from agencies who were probably hired by parties, and they were making some very questionable requests. So he said that he had said no, but then he also added that he had no background in AI or tech or like video production or animation, and he had self-trained himself using ChatGPT. So his point was that if he could have learned it,
Yeah.
political parties, if they can't find someone like him to make it, they can totally train someone to create. And it's really not that difficult to learn. Like if you put your mind to it, the
And
tools are there. Sorry,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
the number of deepfakes we've seen already, we can see political parties have hired people and are using it. So what are your thoughts about deepfakes and the stuff you've seen?
Saurav, you want to start?
Yeah, but I've not worked around AI
Okay.
yet. I don't think I'll be able to comment on that.
So I have some thoughts on this. One is I would tend to agree that it is a little exaggerated because honestly, because I constantly follow the news, I haven't seen much use of it. One instance I think was Kejriwal from jail saying something. That is the limit. Again, his voice, whatever was modified. Like I think Imran Khan did this during the Pakistan elections also, where like, but वहाँ पे, when the video went out, they had actually put in this is like authenticated AI voice of Imran Khan, which is
But
appreciated. It's like guy is in
yeah.
jail. We have
But
reproduced his voice.
but with that, there are these two things. So there is obviously Imran Khan's party authorizing them to do AI videos of Imran Khan, deepfaked Imran Khan. But then there are also deepfake videos of him, fake videos that were floated
Yes.
otherwise
Yes.
also. So now you've got this
So one of the I think scary parts of this is that we are not seeing it coming out on, let's say, social media, right? So YouTube and Meta and even Twitter are working on ways to sort of detect artificial content, right? They have a term, I forget. But they're trying to do that. But if this never comes on social media and it just circulates on WhatsApp, now that is the danger, right? That is actually the danger where even if it's happening, we don't know, right? For all you know, that WhatsApp is the best place for artificially generated AI content, right? And that is something that is encrypted. We don't know what is happening. I don't even know if Meta has like the capability to find out if there is like AI generated content going out on WhatsApp. So that's one fear where it might be happening insidiously. We just don't know about it. So I would say on the surface that it's exaggerated, but honestly, we don't know, right? Um, but the second thing is, you have to also understand that in places like India, it is very easy to create content which people will believe. Like like you don't even need AI for it, honestly. Like you can just morph videos, you can cut out like 2 seconds and from here there, and you can make anybody say whatever. You genuinely use the blur tool and it becomes a beautiful clip. It's very simple to do, right? So, and the thing is, because because I think, Indians have gotten access to internet very recently, and there is like not much time being given to actually educate them on digital literacy is practically
Yeah.
non-existent, right?
Yeah.
So, it's very difficult for them to critically think about what they're seeing. They'll just believe it. So when AI actually comes in, or if it is already here, that just takes the problem to next levels, right?
Mm.
Which is the scary part there.
I mean, this is an important point about the digital literacy, because but this also points out that why we would not need deepfakes, as you say, because just written forwarded messages are enough to
Yeah.
fool
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
into
And
believing
Yeah,
things.
WhatsApp has
caricaturing,
also been
comicking.
incremental.
Sorry.
WhatsApp has been.
WhatsApp has been incremental, tool for the BJP to win. It has been very well documented, and
Hmm.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
fear is
yeah.
kind of very legit today.
I once got an access. So I have done a story on this, right? It is basically this politician in India called Kapil Mishra, who had
Mhm.
started an ecosystem, in quotes,
Mm.
and they were operating via Telegram, right? Now Telegram, you can just share a group link, and then people can just join in hordes, and
Got
then
it.
mass file transfers can happen there. So I had infiltrated, quote unquote, a group with a friend, Shambhavi, and we were basically just tracking it for a month. What is happening? That was during the farmers' protest.
Mhm.
Just for the context of the non-Indian audience, so there was this massive protest that happened in India against three farm laws, which the farming community was opposing, and they sat near on the borders of Delhi for 1.5 years. Like they blocked a highway and they just sat there, multiple highways actually, until the government had to take it back. So I was tracking it during that time. Um, the most weird things were happening in there. Of course, there were like text messages coming in, like forwards that you can send. We found a batch of PDF files, right? And these were PDF files which were out and out hateful content, but they were so beautifully designed for Instagram. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
like aspect ratio and, like big text, like, thumbnail text, all these things which, YouTubers tell us to, oh, you can generate great thumb clicks, like thumbnail clicks out of it. Those points were used to create these PDF files.
Mm.
Each PDF was 300 pages long. So each of them, like 5 to 6 of them. So that was like straight 1,500 images defaming the farmers, right? Defaming, and I'm not putting that mildly. There were images of them morphed into like Khalistanis. There were, to paint them as terrorists. There were
Mm.
bizarre images, right? And very hateful. Comics, being drawn, which were like Muslims, farmers in cahoots with each other, and going and
Yeah.
doing some terrorist activity, sort of a thing, right? It was so scary to watch that, right? Because honestly, like these 1,500 images, I must have seen like one or two of them on social media. But
Mm.
how many of those were actually shared on WhatsApp, on random Instagram accounts, on Facebook groups, with
Mhm.
closed Facebook groups, or these channels like Ulta Chashma? They must
Mhm.
have used these also. You never know, right? So uh, it's a factory. Like that article is about.
Yeah.
It's a hate factory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is indeed like a great WhatsApp infrastructure in India that the BJP has been able to tap. And it's just left to be seen if the other political parties have managed to even scratch the surface and kind of use it to do any counter messaging. And I guess on 4th of June, we'll know if any of the critical voices have seeped or any of it has made a difference. But fine, I think we'll go to final points. And I mean, we've got a space where there are all these social media platforms and there are various problems on them. We've got the BJP government now with its own agenda, kind of using these platforms to the ways it wants. Social media platforms are growing increasingly friendly with the BJP government. And where do you now? And we've discussed how this has sort of affected various people, including journalists and people trying to voice dissent. Where do you see us going now? Is the question.
I have a very recent incident which actually gave me hope. So after this whole demonetization thing happened with me, I was actually down in the dumps. Honestly, I was in Nagpur. I was surrounded by, as we call them, Sanghis. I was surrounded by, like, my family who is super BJP supporting, very WhatsApp addicted. That it's gone to such a level that I see family members calling me a Librandu or something. Librandu being like a curse word for liberals in India, right?
I sympathize. I have a similar, except for my parents, similar family.
Yeah, and like
I
I
think
think
most
we
of
all
us.
have like drunk uncles, right? We have drunk uncles everywhere, and these drunk uncles have been turned into potent weapons of WhatsAppery. So they basically now in real life also they're like in your face they will just curse you. So it's like a troll come to life, but it is actually your uncle who you grow up with. It's just most traumatizing. So for 4 days this was happening with me, the demonetization thing happening was happening with me, and I got very stressed out. And I was like, yesterday I did a stream where I was like, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to leave this shit. I'm going to whatever become like I'm going to do educational content now. I will not do contemporary politics because honestly, I can't earn a living otherwise. So I'll have to find a new strategy. The heartening thing was that my community was so generous. Like, like they're like, listen, don't worry, you don't need monetization. We will throw money at you. And they threw money at me on like yesterday particularly. It became like a fundraising sort of stream, right? So my thing is, in India, it's unfortunate that politics has become something that is only accessible, or the people who are involved in quote unquote politics, which is electoral politics, are the most loudest, most vile, most toxic people, right? Either you will see them shouting on TV at each other, or you will see them on social media trolling people or calling them names or with anonymous handles, or you will see them in your house now, which is like they're screaming at your face. uh, it's very sad that sensible people would rather identify themselves as apolitical, and they would say that, oh, I don't need this toxicity in my life, and do not engage at all, right? There are people, like, I keep calling them out, there are comedians who have shut down. There are even journalists who have shut down, right? There used to be businessmen who used to at least criticize the economic situation of the country, which is affecting their company. Even they have shut down, right? It's so sad that politics has become the exclusive domain of the vile. And I feel like as citizens, what I am at least trying to actively do is make politics a little more interesting again, a little more accommodating, and a place where you can at least have conversations instead of shouting at each other. I feel like that is the first step that we need to do as a society right now, as a population, where at least we are making politics friendly again. And it is basically a way through which we make decisions as a whole, as a society, which people need to understand. So you need to be involved in it. Don't run away from it. And it is our job to create a nice environment where we can actually do it. So there is hope. I would say there is hope. Yes.
Saurav?
Yeah, and it's really sad, just picking up on that note. A lot of my journalist friends have been sort of leaving the industry. There's a lot of good brains leaving our industry, which is very sad because, conditions are bad. The whole censorship framework is bad. So people are neither they are financially okay, and neither are they, or nor are they able to, write freely. So that problem is persisting, and we need to find solutions there. But just about what we were discussing, I feel the next government, if the government changes, that government has a lot of work to do to undo a lot
Hmm.
damage that the present government has done, right? So that being optimistic there, if the government changes, right? But if the government does not change, you see the next fresh hell that will be let loose is a new bill that is in the works. It is a broadcasting bill. So now YouTube is on the radar. So potentially people like Meghnad, other journalists who have now or maybe forced to move to YouTube, have to face increased censorships with the new bill. So all the kind of laws that are being brought in today, and the courts being unable to sort of act as a pillar against executive excess. I think that entire atmosphere that is being created and the new weapon that they're
Hmm.
adding to their weaponry every single day, I think that really needs to be addressed.
Mm.
And
You know,
hmm,
one small story I have around this. So,
yeah,
the broadcasting bill, when it was introduced as a draft, right? It's basically full censorship, right? So it's a very thick bill, right? So because I've worked in parliament before, I'm able to like read the bills and analyze it and explain it in a simple way. So Ravish Kumar, who is one of our top journalists and he's the biggest YouTube channel right now. So he called me over to his house and he's like, Acha, you sit down and explain this bill to me on camera, right? I'm like, sure. I just didn't anticipate the reaction I would get from it because while I was going through the bill, this thick bill, I was just flipping over and telling him clause after clause. You could see Ravish Kumar and his face was just getting scarier and scarier. And at one point, when I said that, so they can come and take your equipment away and they will not even tell you when they come under this new law, and it'll just go away. He just looked at his camera and his lights and he's like, lights bhi leke jayenge? And I'm like, yeah, it's possible. I mean, I don't know if your lights store data. I don't know what reason they'll give, but they'll take it away. There was this sudden, like look of fear, like where if someone like Ravish Kumar with like his 10 crore followers is also like feeling it, uh, what will the small creator do, right? Like if
Mhm.
Ravish Kumar is taken out, for example, or shut down, it will spread such fear amongst the creators or the people who are trying to dissent.
killing effect. Yeah.
It will
Mhm.
just be like, if things can happen to him, anything can happen to us. Nobody will even talk about us then. Nobody
Mm.
will even talk
Yeah.
about what happened to us. Even that will be censored.
Mm. Ritu?
So my thinking is this, that politics is always in waves. You know, and that has been human history. Um, and I hope that we emerge on the other side of the wave, right? Like we are in the
Yeah.
dumps right now. Hopefully there'll be a peak somewhere else.
Mm.
So yes, there is hope, and I do also feel that the politics is, after all, a representation of the society that we are in, especially democratic politics. So maybe we did something wrong 10 years ago, 15 years ago in education somewhere
Yeah, I
that we are
mean,
here now.
mm,
So hopefully we can do better for the next generation,
mm.
right?
I mean, I think that's what personally gives me hope, in the sense that there's all these things you're seeing on surface, but I don't know. I think my kind of way of hope is to think that there are still a lot of people who believe otherwise, than in the politics of hate, and who are probably their voices are not as loud, and they're not speaking, but it may
Yes.
not even translate in the voting in June. But
Um,
I have a feeling that that will help change the tide, I guess. And like Meghnad, it was a family WhatsApp experience, and
yeah.
it's one of the things where I got onto the WhatsApp group saying, okay, this time I got off it because I got really crazy, and then I got on it because I was like, it starts with my family, and then I went on it and debated these really old uncles who've never met for a really long time, and then at some point I came out of it, and I was all sad because, well, they didn't want to debate properly and everything. And then, but the hope was, I got to know that there were a few members who, after I left, kind of said something in support, saying that she's allowed to have different views. People are allowed to have different views. And that was, I think, one of my oldest relatives. And so, well, some hope somewhere. But yeah.
There is this one thing that I keep talking about now is that, the world is facing an epidemic of loneliness.
Mm,
It's
Yeah.
WHO has said it's a disease now, where platforms has ensured that we get lonelier and lonelier, even if we feel more connected, like by
mm,
putting us in our algorithm bubbles and making us feel lonelier. So sometimes what people feel is that the only option to feel a human connect is to join a mob, which happens
mm,
to be a conservative right-wing mob, or a religiously brainwashed mob, or just become faceless and join this mob, become a part of the mob. while you're individually trying to stand out, you're also somehow becoming like being affected by negative solidarity and becoming a part of it. I feel like we need to talk about loneliness more. There are a lot of lonely people, especially in India, who tend to be attracted by these things where they get some sort of virtual validation from this crowd. And that is what is leading to them not talking properly, but instead screaming at people all the time, right? To make a point. Yeah, it's something worth actually studying and talking about more.
I guess that's it. Our hope is in getting a sense of community. And thank
Yeah.
you for giving me community today.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
so nice. It's so nice to hear all you talk about this, and I wish you all the best. And let's see what happens in the elections. I'm
Yes.
sure we'll all be watching very keenly.
Yeah, glued to our screens on the list of results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.